That's what we made it through. From the spark that lit the flame to the heroes we still name, every story keeps the dream alive for me and you. Every star has a story, every freedom has a cost. When we remember where we've been, we never lose what can't be lost. Raise those colors high today. Let freedom ring across the USA. From sea to shining sea we stand. One nation, one heart, hand in hand. Celebrate the dream we're living, honor those who kept us free. Come discover, learn together, Linda's bountiful wonders. That's where history comes alive for me. Fireworks light up the evening sky. Children laugh as old flags fly. Hidden stories, forgotten names, every holiday still remains a lesson that reminds us who we are inside. Curiosity opens every door, history gives us something more. Yesterday helps guide today, lighten up tomorrow's way. Raise those colors high today. Celebrate! Let freedom ring across the USA. Celebrate! From sea to shining sea we stand. One nation, one heart, hand in hand.
Well, hello, everyone, and happy Independence Day. I mean, everyone has a 4th of July, but United States has a 4th of July that is our Independence Day. And today is our, let's see, how do we pronounce it? Semi-quincentennial, 250 years since the founding of our nation. And, that's a milestone. I know in some cultures and some countries it's a drop in the bucket, but for us, what we're celebrating. And we have some really neat facts that gives us really a deeper appreciation about how unique and evolving America's story truly is. Um, the Continental Congress of the United States, before we were even the United States, voted in favor of independence from Great Britain on July 2nd, 1776. And once the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, it took weeks for many parts of the colonies to even hear about it. In some places, it wasn't even read aloud until August. And in areas that were still loyal to Britain, it was either resisted or flat out ignored. But, we think, okay, so we had, today is Independence Day. We declared our independence. But, they still had to fight a war for almost 8 years, just short of 8 years, just to become a sovereign nation. The war began with the battles of Lexington and Concord, April 19th, 1775. So that's the official date start of the revolution, when colonial militias clashed with British troops in Massachusetts, marking the start of armed conflicts. Um, and the Continental Army was led by George Washington. The army was formed shortly after to coordinate a colonial military effort. Um, and then a decisive moment came at the Siege of Yorktown in 1781, when British General Cornwallis surrendered to American and French forces, effectively ending major combat operations. So we think of today, oh, we declared our independence and everything was just wonderful, and it wasn't. It took 8 years of fighting to break away. Oh, and there's George Washington. Um, And the war formally concluded with the Treaty of Paris, signed September 3rd, 1783, in which Great Britain recognized the independence of the United States and ceded its claims to the 13 colonies. Um, so, after the battles of Lexington and Concord, which started everything, the Second Continental Congress chose George Washington, who was an experienced um, militia commander from Virginia, to lead the Continental Army. George Washington resigned as Army commander in 1783, but he stayed active in arguing for a stronger national government when the Articles of Confederation proved to be insufficient. This made him the logical choice to become president of the Constitutional Convention, and after the Constitution was ratified, he was unanimously elected the nation's first president. And Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams were the only founding fathers serving in the Continental Congress when the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, 1776. The three men had been appointed by the Congress to craft the document, with Jefferson writing it and the other two editing and polishing it. But then the first Constitution of the United States was adopted in 1788. For the acceptance of the Constitution, 9 states needed to vote in its favor. Delaware was the first state, and New Hampshire was the 9th state to accept the Constitution, thus making it legal. The Constitution has been amended 27 times. The document established a federal government with separate powers, the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Our government really is set up in such a neat way. You really have checks and balances. Now, James Madison was known as the father of the Constitution because, of course, we are thinking about the Declaration of Independence, but there's the Constitution that really holds the whole government together. And Madison's Virginia plan for representative government and a separation of powers among executive, legislation, and judicial branches was the basis of the final version submitted to the states for ratification. Madison also drafted the Bill of Rights, which is really important. Thomas Jefferson was the first Secretary of State. Now, his clashes with Alexander Hamilton over the size and power of the federal government set the course for the two-party system in the U.S. politics. During his time as secretary, he favored closer ties with France during the French Revolution, while President George Washington wanted to keep a more neutral stance, which makes sense. John Jay was the first Supreme Court Chief Justice. He helped implement the Judiciary Act of 1789, establishing that the federal court system and setting the foundation for judicial review and national supremacy over individual states. So whereas as so many Europeans have discovered and coming over for the World Soccer Games or football games, how each state is separate, but yet we're under one constitution, which is really there's them arguing over, what goes into the so 4 of the founding fathers, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison, all served as presidents. And all 4 pursued domestic and foreign policies that still define the United States today. Now, here's interesting. 3 U.S. presidents died on the 4th of July. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on July 4th, 1826, while John Monroe died on July 4th, 1831. Isn't that interesting? So, but do you know why we celebrate on July 4th? Like you were saying, Mary, earlier, that, here they were writing it and rewriting it. On July 3rd, 1776, John Adams wrote to his wife, Abigail, that the second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epocha epoch, a special day in the history of America. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, bells, bonfires, illuminations from one end of the continent to the other. That's what he wrote back to his wife. It seems the founding father, John Adams, felt pretty strongly that July 2nd would be recognized as the landmark date of this young nation's founding. So, why do we celebrate 2 days later? Well, when the Second Continental Congress selected a committee to draft the Statement of Independence that severed the colonies from British rule, only 9 of the 13 colonies favored independence. However, the other delegates soon fell into line, and on July 2nd, Congress formally approved the resolution that proclaimed the United States of America as an independent country. Following additional edits, the Declaration of Independence was completed, adopted, and sent for printing on July 4th. And on August 2nd, the rank and file delegates began adding their signatures to the documents. And I think it was John Hancock. If you ever hear somebody use the term, oh, put your John Hancock on it, it's because John Hancock, which was one of the delegates, wrote huge, everyone was signing. He wrote really big so that King George could see it from all the way from England. So the idea of commemorating the anniversary of independence didn't gain any traction until a pair of notable celebrations popped up. July 4th, on July 4th, oh, Ron has we're echoing. They had fireworks in Boston, a military demonstration, and more pyrotechnics in Philadelphia. So that set an annual tradition to have to celebrate on the 4th of July instead of the 2nd. So let me just shut this door. Okay, so did you know? I have a bunch of did you knows here. Did you know that in 1783, the US, the United States, became the first country to gain independence from a European power? How about that? We were the first. Did you know that Hawaii is the only state to ever have been ruled by a queen? And did you know that the US or United States motto, pluribus unum, means out of many, one? And that's so important. We have the United States is such a brand new idea because people from all over the globe comes to the United States, become citizens, and take on becoming American. You don't stay. My family came from Scotland and Ireland, and Italy. My forefathers, but it's really neat that we became Americans. My sister-in-law is from the Philippines, and she could not wait to become a U.S. citizen, and so that is really, really cool. So out of many, one. Did you know that New York City was the original capital of the United States? And did you know that Route 20, which stretches from Boston to Newport, Oregon, and comes right through Buffalo, is America's longest highway? So Ron is out on the front porch, I see. Did you know that jazz music originated in New Orleans? Or that the U.S. fought Great Britain a second time in the War of 1812, which of course is, marked right here in Buffalo. I was teasing a Canadian friend of mine one time about, the buildings in Buffalo. I said, yes, because the Canadians burnt half of Buffalo down in the War of 1812. And it's neat when we go over to Canada because we're like 20 minutes from the border where we live here. There's
Linda, excuse me, Linda, you should see in the backyard across the street from us. I'm looking directly at a deer in Luann's backyard. She's looking right at me, a little doe. Ah, it's so funny.
Put your camera towards that way.
Just turn your phone around.
Okay.
Turn your phone around so we could see.
The
No, just
interesting
turn
thing
your
about-
phone around. No,
Okay.
Ron, no, just physically turn your phone around. Oh, goodness. Okay, you can't really see it though. Okay, anyways.
The
That's
interesting
neat.
thing about jazz is that it actually didn't get famous until they actually brought it over to Paris and started doing jazz in Paris.
It,
It
I
got
can't hear
famous
you.
over there. Oh. Let me check my mic. Hang on. Hang on. I'll be right back.
Okay, there's a couple more here of my do you knows. Let's see. Oh, that's what I started to say when Ron said that. There's cannons. I mean, they're not working anymore, but pointed towards the United States on the Canadian side that were just left over from the War of 1812. Let's
Can you
see.
see that deer? Can you see that deer wagging its tail?
No,
And
I don't see anything. You're off. It's you just you don't have your camera on at all, honey.
I don't know how to change it. Sorry
I
about
know.
that.
Okay, honey.
Hey, it's all good. You know, one of the cool things about jazz is that it didn't become big in the US till it became big overseas in Paris.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Do you know for any of the anybody in the culture that was black, in order to work in the United States in entertainment, in the hotels, restaurants, or whatever, they had to get a union card, and the place where they got their union card is the Buffalo Black History Museum right down the street from our house, and there's a museum dedicated, and all your famous that we all know today, Sammy Davis Jr., all the guys that were in the Blues Brothers song, Duke Ellington, they all had to come to Buffalo to get their union card at the Black Museum that's here in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's a wonderful museum, and they just recently, in the last couple of years, just expanded the museum. It's a wonderful museum. Yeah, it's really Buffalo, our little Buffalo, it has quite the history. But a couple other do you know type things here I have. Did you know that the U.S. Secret Service, which was formed in 1865, was created not necessarily to protect the president, but to stamp out rampant counterfeiting after the Civil War? We call, the USA, the United States of America is referred to as the states, the United States, the U.S., the USA, and just simply America. And that did you know that the United States is the only country to have all 5 major climate zones? We have tropical, dry, temperate, continental, and polar. In addition, the US has the highest rate of tornadoes than any other country in the world. On average, the country deals with more than 1,000 tornadoes every year. So I thought that was really interesting.
Especially if you live in Tornado Alley.
Yes. We have had um, a, a couple hurricanes here, right here in Buffalo. Very rare for having it, but um, a famous one, if you want to call it famous, um, hit a restaurant full of people, and the workers acted fast, got everyone into the. It wasn't the freezer run that everyone um, at the Holiday Showcase restaurant. It's
Yep.
no longer there, but it was a well-known place, and everyone was safe. Although the building it took quite a hit. So, but as we celebrate our Independence Day today, you know, it wasn't just a one day um, s- operation, because that was just the start of it. I think I don't have it in my notes, but I think there was 27 different reasons for that, and the Declaration of Independence, of why we were breaking away from Great Britain. Um, and a lot of it was over taxation without representation. That was at the Tea Party, the Boston Tea Party, when they dumped all the tea in the Boston Harbor that came over, um, because they were being taxed and taxed and taxed. It sounds very familiar about being overtaxed nowadays, but um, okay, here's some of the grievances. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out of their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislators. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent, him being King George in Great Britain, um, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation and for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. Those are just some of the grievances that's mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. So really, when you think of the United States, you think of the Declaration of Independence, but also think about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I should have the listing of the Bill of Rights. I don't have that in front of me. But it's what has made our nation so strong and so different from other countries. Um, and it's really been neat having the soccer championships over, and having people from all over the world come and experience the United States. We have been getting such a kick out of the tributes and the videos about people from other countries, not just about the food. Obviously, people, from around the world are just amazed at our food, but just the diversity of our country, the size of our country, the sheer magnitude of, from coast to coast, and everywhere in between, and just the friendliness of the people. So apparently, in other countries, we have gotten such bad press that everybody was, oh, there's the Bill of Rights, which is a little too small to read all. But, you know, um, people think that it's just America, just, everyone's fighting and everyone's mean and nasty. And so all of these visitors that we've had over the last month or so have realized, hey, all right, the media's been lying to us. Oh, here's the Bill of Rights. Okay. The First Amendment is freedom of speech and religion. Some countries and some states originally were set up that you'd have, like in Maryland, you had to be Catholic. That was the preferred religion. So the First Amendment is freedom of speech and freedom of religion. You can honor God however you want. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms and to have a military, and that's important. Um, and as some countries are finding out that the government is corrupt, but the people and they have a very strong military, and so people have no freedoms. The Third Amendment, no quartering of soldiers, and that was one that especially during the revolutionary time was one of the reasons they broke away. They had Britain was sending troops over and just taking over people's homes and just quartering meaning just having them live there. The Fourth Amendment, no reason unreasonable search or seizure taking things. So you couldn't just walk in and take over your belongings. Fifth Amendment, you can stay silent to avoid confessing to a crime. When they say, yeah, plead the fifth, um, you know, it would have to be proved against you. You couldn't just confess, which is funny because you say, well, wait a minute. Why you of course that person did it. Why isn't he just pleading guilty? Well, because he has that right not to. It would have to be proved against him. The Sixth Amendment is a right to a speedy trial. In some countries, you could languish in jail for years before you even are brought to trial. And so that was one of the Bill of Rights that is so important. The Seventh Amendment, trial by jury, a group of people with a judge as a mediator. So um, you have the choice of a trial by jury or by judge, um, depending on the type of crime you're being charged with. The Eighth Amendment, bail money that fits the crime and no cruel or unusual punishments. Um, and so, having something that fits the crime, and that's very important.
I
The
always,
ninth
when I hear that, I always think of Hammurabi Law. You
Yes,
steal something, you get your hand cut off.
yes, yeah. Um, and that would be a cruel or unusual punishment. Or um, the if with the bail that fits the crime, the abuse of that could have been if say if you were run against a person that was higher in stature, and so they said, well, wait a minute, yes, you were convicted of this or charged with this petty offense, but we're going to make your bail money so big that you'll never get out of prison, if it doesn't fit the crime. The Ninth Amendment, people are entitled to more rights than are listed in the US Constitution. I'm not quite sure exactly what that is. And then the 10th Amendment, any other rights can be decided by individual states or the people. So there's, in the Bill of Rights, it's important that we have protections from government and by government, and it's so important. And we take these things for granted until you go to other countries. And first of all, the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. Do you realize in Great Britain nowadays, if you put something on Facebook that the government deems inappropriate, you could be arrested for for things that to us is like, oh my goodness, things that I hear people say every day, not really even nasty. and that people are being put in jail for it. And this isn't even in a what we consider a third world country. This is, in Europe, and that was one of the things that I think um, we, because of so many Europeans and Asian people from other countries coming over and discovering the freedoms that America has, and now going back to their countries and saying, "Well, wait a minute, you said, the news." I have Canadian friends that keep, not my friends, but friends of theirs that I've met at parties, thinking that America, they're getting such bad press and just lies. It's just amazing. So,
So the Ninth Amendment is all about being the Constitution being you can't write every law or every right on there.
okay.
So it's all about certain rights that shall not be construed or to deny or disparage others retained by the people. It's a
Okay,
safety
good.
net that prevents the government from claiming the citizens only possess the specific freedoms that listed on the bill. Like, for instance, Griswold versus Connecticut, which was a landmark case in 1965 that protected married couples' rights to use contraception.
Oh, okay. And interesting because, yeah, it's just so that the government cannot overstep.
Yeah,
Um,
it says you don't. The government can't force you to choose a career.
yes, which is so important. Things that we just take for granted that are not are these rights that we take for granted are not everywhere, and we just don't realize it sometimes. So, well, in anyway, however you celebrate your independence today, we might remember that the Declaration of Independence was just the first step of becoming a free nation. Um, our forefathers, and I say forefathers, my relatives didn't come over probably until well after the United States was already established. Um,
Mine
but
didn't come here till 1906, and I only know
wow,
that because I found the paperwork.
that is so cool. That is so cool. So, you know, but it is our forefathers because we claim our country. And so however you celebrate today, just remember, the 4th of July was just the beginning. Um, a war had to be fought, um, compromises made. Um, Benjamin Franklin um, went to went to was in Europe, in France, and in Great Britain, doing he was the delegate. There is a lot going on, and and because of the sacrifices that they made back then, we continue to make sacrifices and work for a united country to this day. So, but that was our history lesson. Um, Things that we just take for granted, but sometimes have to be made aware of. That these people, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington, these names from our history, um, that did things, um, and did get this nation started. So,
Before we go,
mhm.
just one quick comment. Be socially aware with your fireworks.
Oh,
Remember the families of veterans that struggle with those sounds. I used to be one of those, but
yes.
not just those, but also families with sensitive kids, especially
Mm,
kids that are on the spectrum.
yes. Yes. And even pets. Um, it's funny. I every time I hear, in our neighborhood, there has been so many of the big booms, it just, and I keep thinking, okay, somebody that came here from a war-torn country, or like you said, from the military, hearing those booms, it sounds like, well, it is bombs, but you know, I always wondered about that triggering somebody's, um,
You know,
you know,
and some people say, "Oh, what about the ones in the ear that aren't that loud?" But when you hear that screeching sound, like as it's going up, those
mm,
sound like guided missiles.
yes, yes, yes. I was surprised. Now, last year in our neighborhood, there were so many fireworks, and yesterday there wasn't. We went to a professional one in a park, and that was cool. But there wasn't in our neighborhood. Maybe tonight, I don't know. But in past years, we hadn't had to leave the house just to watch fireworks. Um, so maybe it will be a little calmer tonight. So, but with that, you have a glorious Fourth. Enjoy your freedoms, and but don't take it for granted, because um, it's still is worth fighting for. So thanks, Mary, for setting this up.
Not a problem. And we'll see you back here Monday at
Monday.
butt crack of dawn
All righty.
for Wake Up Reveille.
Great. Wonderful.
Have a
Bye
good
bye.
fourth. Have fun. Be safe.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.